Okay, it's live.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going over characteristics of a project manager. Characteristics and or skills. So far we have diplomatic. What else you got?
Flexible.
Flexible. Why does a project manager need to be flexible?
Because often project scope and stuff can change. And
So to change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Projects are changing all the time. And you need to be managing the risks of that happening. What else does a project manager need to be? What kind of skills, hard or soft?
you have some
Direct.
technical knowledge about the project.
You should probably have some technical knowledge. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to know who to look for. And you have to be able to understand what they're saying. I know that's not knowledge.
I was gonna put like good at communicating thing.
Communicating.
Communication.
Conflict management, perhaps,
Yeah.
as a subcategory of communication.
Give me 3 more. That one's a good looking at.
Dedicated.
You have to be dedicated to the project. If you're not dedicated, you can't expect your members to be.
Good looking, I guess you can put up there.
Maybe 2 more.
How about like a certain amount of like courageousness? So being comfortable going beyond your comfort zones. So like if you don't want to make calls because it's like you're awkward on the phone, so you still like push yourself through that.
Same. Like capable of like wearing a lot of hats.
Okay, yeah.
Large head.
But think about it, a project manager is not just in the position of manager. They might also be acting as an engineer, as a salesperson, as a bunch of different people. And of course you can delegate those tasks, but sometimes it's more efficient to do it yourself. So maybe 1 more.
How about creative?
I like it. Creative. Some of these definitely overlap, but I think there's some on here. Well, someone who's a leader. Political skills was a good one. Tactical, you got that. Efficient and effective. Do you guys know the difference?
Effective is about results, whereas efficient is about like time, perhaps.
So I think that's a good way to look at it. So this is the way I was taught it, and it works for me. Effective is doing the right thing. Efficient is doing the thing right. Okay. So roles of project manager. These are the kinds of things that you're gonna do. How does having project manager as part of the club make projects easier to accomplish?
Provides direction
Provides direction for who?
for members, stakeholders, customers.
And the project leaders, right?
Yeah.
When the project leaders get stuck, first person you turn to.
Mhm.
What are some of the differences between the project manager and the project leader as far as roles? Because in industry, you're not going to see project leaders. You're just going to see, I guess you will, but typically you'll see a project manager. And the project leaders don't necessarily have that as their title. It can happen. What's the biggest difference in ESW specifically? And also what roles overlap?
Maybe like high level monitoring to make sure that everything's going well versus like in-depth involvement with the actual like actuating or achieving milestones, maybe. So like levels.
No, that's true.
Levels.
Give me at least one more example.
Project manager might have more like a broader things, so things I have to do. Project manager just working with the team, or project management might have to work with customers or other
Mhm.
people outside the team. maybe.
Yeah. What kind of people are they communicating with?
The management, customers, that sort of thing.
So you have the people above you,
Mhm.
the people adjacent to you, the people below you. Who are the stakeholders in the projects that you're working on right now? Any project, doesn't have to be SW. Think of a project, think of the stakeholders.
The Catholic collective.
So who are all the stakeholders in that project?
So it would be the temple collective itself, there'd be the residents around the farm. ESW might be a stakeholder perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Can't think of anything besides.
ESW Global or ESW RT?
Probably both.
Who else then? You're missing one.
Would the team be another stakeholder? No.
No, they're just the project team.
Okay.
I'm thinking ESW, U of R, and or Ego reps.
Okay.
So just the other group that's
Right.
working
I
on
forgot about
this.
that. Yeah.
Because they're not necessarily part of the team, but they're definitely a stakeholder.
Right.
Okay, our mission and vision. We already talked about this a little bit. So this is what our mission and vision used to be. I like this. This is what it is now. We can debate this later. Either way, we'll get back to that. So ideally, we want our projects to align with our mission and vision. So here's just kind of the main roles of a project leader. But how are we going to hit both our mission and vision while also doing all of these things? It's kind of a lot, right? Well, you can do that for a second. Can you think of a project in ESW that Yay, it worked. That hits design, educate, unite. Can you think of a project that does all three of those things?
The solar installation cell charger for Tent City. We're like designing a solar installation. We're educating members in the community about issues or about solar installation technology or just being part of a project. So like customer requirements, engineering requirements, that kind of stuff. And then uniting in terms of sort of like pulling together all these like pieces, whether it's our IT people or Rochester community people in order to actualize the final product.
Heck yeah. So when you think about your projects, think about what of these three things does it hit? Ideally, we want it to hit all three of them. If it hits one or two and it's already been approved, focus on those one or two things. Don't try to change the scope for it to hit all three. But as the project manager, that's something you look at. You try to find projects that are going to cover all three, or if there's three projects that cover each one really well, that works too. So what about? Go back. Okay, so these are the main 4 steps that you're going to do as a project leader. Which 2 are people going to see you doing? Which 2 will people recognize?
Maybe like the lead and control.
You okay? Yep. Cool. Why are those 2 gonna be more visible than plan and organize?
Because that I think happens more during team meetings or like workout events.
The
Well,
last 2? Or the first 2?
the last 2 would be more visible.
Okay.
Or like plan and organize might be done in a smaller group or by oneself or between project leader and project manager.
So why is that an important thing to point out, that lead and control are things that people in and outside the group, everyone's gonna see that action?
You want to bring a good attitude when you're doing those things, maybe?
Yeah. You want to really look at your leadership style and see how does this fit my group and my group's needs. Also looking at your stakeholders. For build day, for example, if you're for some reason being really controlling on build day, that's all everyone would see.
Right.
But if you're the kind of leader that just wants it to be a group effort and everyone gets an equal say, that's going to show as well. And there's benefits and drawbacks to both of them. Which of these do you think are your strengths and weaknesses? Do you think there's one thing you're better at than any other? One thing you're worse at? Can you recognize that, or you're not sure?
I'm very good at the organizing step, not necessarily all of the other ones.
I think I'm the same, yeah. Organizing definitely easiest for me.
What do you think, Sebastian?
I'd say I have trouble with the organize or control bit. Yeah.
But are you good at leading and planning, or?
I am adequate at those
Okay,
things.
adequate at both. So initiating planning are the first two things that you're going to do. So you can kind of see in this picture, once you get to execute and monitor control, it's pretty iterative. But for initiating and planning, you're going to finish the project charter before you start planning. So when you started this project, chances are you started right here. You started at the planning stage, which makes things a little bit easier. But this is also kind of a bit inflexible at that point, which also makes it a bit harder. So this whole process is called traditional project management. That's because it just kind of goes in this and it has that little waterfall thing. There's another type of project management that we don't teach. It's called agile project management. That's when the goal is not clear. And that's typically with software related stuff. But that's more iterative and it's going to go through the process over and over. So we typically don't see that. So this is typically the project management style that you're going to see. So as far as initiating, so if you're going to create a project charter, you're going to go through the whole process. First thing you want to know is, what is there a need for? You don't want to just kind of make up a problem. You want to find a problem, or you want a problem that's presented to you that you want to find a solution for. This is a good place to try to find those problems, to try to find partners. As far as initiating, these are just 4 little steps that they have identified just to help us, just so you don't miss anything. Find your niche is basically what makes your project special. Investigate possibilities, find alternatives, identify resources, what's going to help me get to that finish line. Create the project charter, secure outside assistance. For a builder, you're required to have a partner. For some projects you don't, but it's usually helpful. As far as observe and adapt, but just saying, how has the project group changed? And that you might not see right away, but you're going to see them changing a little bit over the course of the project, and you're going to have to either remotivate them, or maybe they're really ambitious and you need to get them down to earth, that kind of stuff. And then adapt, just the balance of responsibilities and adapting to what the project needs. So as far as initiating a project, the project charters are considered the official kickoff of the project. And it's going to answer these questions. How or why are you doing the project? How are you going to solve it? Are you going to solve the problem? And how do you know when you're done? I feel like that's the biggest one that people miss. How do you know when you're done with the project? And it's not just going to keep continuing. This is just way more detailed about the project charter, but we're going to skip down a little bit. It answers the questions why, what, how, but also talks about the key players, budget constraints, that kind of stuff. You'll see different templates in industry. This is the one that I created for ESW, and this is just one of the examples. As far as the problem statement, you want to focus on the problem or the opportunity. If there's just an opportunity available, don't portray it as a project, portray it as an opportunity. Goal statement, what are you going to actually achieve? The objectives are SMART. Have you guys heard that before? SMART objectives. specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time oriented. So just things that are straightforward typically. Constraints, any sort of limitation on any, so usually on the triple constraint, but any limitation whatsoever. Milestones, I put them on there if there's different milestones, if it's iterative for some reason, put those down and track it realistically. Don't just say, oh, we're gonna finish by this date because that's when they said to have it finished. Kind of track it out and say, okay, what's realistic for us to get it done by? And then just a list of stakeholders and what their roles are. This will help you for when you go back and figure it, okay, who do I need to give this progress report to? Who do I need to reach out to? It'll all be listed. And then at the end, when your project chart is finalized, there's a slot at the bottom to just kind of, initial and date and just say like, I understand the requirements and I agree to it. So it's nothing like binding, but it's a good thing to just say, I am committed to this project. Check. So working with a team. Who's worked with a team before?
I have.
No, never.
Yeah.
So I know we talked about not all projects have teams. Depending on the project, for the most part, teams are going to outperform individuals. And obviously that's because they have a wide range of skill sets and what's not. But sometimes you have to recruit your own team members, which is tough. You kind of have to figure out, okay, am I going to look just at an ESW, just at engineers? What kind of people do I need for this project? Also, sometimes people join your project and they'll say, okay, I really want to join, but I only have an hour a week. You kind of have to figure out, okay, are they going to slow us down, or is there an assignment that I can give them that they're interested in for an hour a week that's going to be really helpful? Also, are there opportunities for new students, or do we just need technical experts? Do we just need fifth years that have been doing this for years and years? You're trying to fit them all in your project in a way that's not going to be overwhelming for them. You can't find the people that you need. I don't care if it's day 1, day 60, second to last day. Try to find people if you really need them. Ask me, reach out to non-members, or especially if it's the beginning, just wait and see if someone fills that gap. Because sometimes that'll happen. People week 3, 4 join at ESW and say, oh yeah, I want to be part of a project. Is there any space left for me? As far as establishing the team, your project chart is already created most likely. Once it's created, you want everyone to understand the project goals and objectives because they're probably not going to change. So you want to make sure they understand that right from the start. You typically want to assign roles, and you typically want to kind of evaluate their strengths and weaknesses and of course interests to figure out what they want to do and what they'd be good at. One of the first things I did during my meeting is I said, I'm not a designer. Who's interested in designing a poster? And, got that out of the way because that's something I know that I'm going to need someone else for. And even though it's the last step of the process, I kind of need to know now if I need to look for someone else. Establish some sort of method for decision making. Who's used a decision making other than consensus or majority rules in a project? Is there anything else you can think of that works well?
You could have like project leaders, what project leader says goes.
Yeah,
Theoretically.
do what I say.
You could have it set up so that the specialists can make decisions related to their field.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. Typically, this is what I'll do is I'll say consensus majority rules, but that's because it's stuff that's either outside the scope or something that the customer isn't directly having a say in. So we usually want to make that differentiation. Establishing ground rules. The main thing is just making sure that people understand that, sitting on their phone during a meeting, isn't something that's going to fly. Like, if you're going to join our project group, like, do work with them, distract people. Little things like, if you notice someone right away speaking a lot, just kind of, okay, we're going to make sure everyone has a turn to speak. Like, little things like that. But if you establish the ground rules early, it'll be less awkward to bring it up, especially when you're talking to your peers, especially when they're older or like the same level as you. It's really hard to say like, hey, I need you to stop doing what you're doing and you need to listen to me. So especially when you're in a group setting, okay, what do you guys think the ground rules should be? Then you say, okay, refer to this. This is what your group members want. This wasn't up to me. I'm not telling you to stop. I'm just saying like, this is what I think everyone prefers. That's not, it's horribly awkward. Keep away from groupthink. What's groupthink?
Sort of like a blind, like trust in public opinion, I suppose.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Basically, oh yeah, let's put the project in this direction, and no one thinks to question it. Everyone's in agreement. So as a project leader, it's really good to play the devil's advocate. Well, are you sure that's going to work? Are you sure there's no better option? If there were other options, infinite money, infinite time, what are other options? Just kind of expand their realm of thinking. Retaining team members. This is tough, right? Who's lost a team member?
It was a
Already?
horrible accident.
Oh god. Who's lost a team member in the semester? Because I have. I've already lost a team member that signed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Know about that.
It's really hard to retain people. They're not getting paid for this. You try to accommodate them in their schedule, and sometimes they still don't show up. So some of it's out of your control. But as far as what's in your control, you can let them know where you are. That's always good. Sometimes you forget, right? You forget to remind them. Maybe send them a day and a half early reminder, something like that. Whatever's going to help them. Usually what I'll say is, what's the best way for me to communicate with you? If they say email, fine. They say, I never check my email, so give me your number. I'll let you know every time there's an important email for you to look at. When you're at a meeting, sometimes it's really easy to just kind of be like almost like narrow-minded and just like go, go, go. Look up and just make sure everyone's engaged. And if not, how do you engage people that aren't engaged? How have you done it before?
You could ask them a question.
Yeah, ask them a direct question. That's probably the best way to do it. What do you think about this? What do you think about the direction we're heading? What would you do in this situation? Or break into smaller groups. Hey, do you want to do this specific aspect of the project? Make sure your team is excited about what they're doing, and make sure you're thanking them for being there, since they don't have to be there. Especially if they're doing extra work, recognize that. Oh. High performance teams. Have you guys heard these terms before?
Mhm.
You guys remember this from last week? What are the 5 stages to be a high performing team?
Is it that forming, norming, storming, performing?
It's well, you want to storm before you norm, but you're pretty much there. So to be a high performing team, you go through these stages. Your team
Adjourning.
forms. You have some sort of disagreements along the way. You normalize them. You start performing. You actually have like a high output. And you're doing really well. And then adjourning. That's pretty much just like your last hurrah, like we did it kind of thing. So this is what all of your teams look like, right? You're committed, you're all result oriented, you're all mutual trust, good communication, high energy. That's every single teammate, right?
Yep.
No. That's not realistic. That's like the overall goal that you're always striving to reach for. So if you hit one of them, that's nice. As far as the direction of the project, given that our membership right now is totally voluntary and deadlines are like sometimes arbitrary because we just go along with semesters and there's no there's typically no actual need when it comes to our deadlines. Sometimes people just have more passion than they have hard skills. But trying to keep a balance of am I going to make all my group members happy, or do we have to reach this deadline? So if everyone's going at a slower rate, but everyone's really happy with the pace that they're going at, maybe that's a time to say, okay, Bree, this is due in November. I really think if we pushed it, 2 more weeks out, and we got it done right before finals, we'd still be on time, but everyone would be a little bit less stressed. I'd probably disagree with you, but I might also agree with you. The reason for that is, think about the last 2 weeks of school. I try to make these projects 10 to 12 weeks. That's because you're typically not off the ground until week 3. In the last 2 weeks, you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. And Thanksgiving week, people are skipping classes and no one's around. And then there's other breaks. And it's really hard to get a 12-week project done in 12 weeks. So typically try to get your team to a little bit higher energy to get that deadline. But if you really think that they're going at a pace that's good for them and extending the deadlines, the best way to do it, definitely try to do that. Predict and adapt. If you see that slow movement from the start, and maybe low morale, try to way to mitigate that. I know these are just kind of like telling you what to do, and like obviously when you're in that moment, you have to think of your own solution. But in that moment, don't just like sit there and think on your own. Like write down your ideas. Get Chris and Sebastian and me and all in a room, and we'll all write down like what is the best way to do this, and we'll all figure it out together. Like because this stuff's hard. Yeah. Running efficient meetings. What's the worst meeting you've ever had? God, let's hear it.
So it was for the LG cardboard project last semester. Hi. So we all decided on a meeting time. Everybody said that they could make it the meeting before. I showed up there at 8 a.m. Nobody showed up for an hour.
How long was the meeting supposed to be?
An hour. So,
Did people show up at 9 or just no one showed up?
nobody showed
Okay.
up. So I was very angry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody had a reasonable excuse afterwards, but since nobody told me ahead of time, because two of the reasons were they were roommates and their alarm clock broke.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it's just very frustrating when that happens, and you don't always know right away whether it's because you did something wrong
Yeah.
or because unforeseen circumstances just all happen to line up on the same time.
Right, and when those unforeseen circumstances happen, you're like, oh, should I call them? And you're like, I don't want to just like call them. And they get like mad at me. Like I don't want to be bossy. Sometimes like, kind of, okay, I know it's early. If you're the kind of person that sleeps in, let me know if you want me to shoot you a text at 7:30 and like call you at 8 kind of thing. Yeah, it's hard to get people up at 8 a.m. I'm surprised, you guys are here at 1 p.m. But that's horrible. Who else has had no one show up to a meeting before? I've had no one show up to a project management course. That was a sad day. It happens. How do you stay engaged? What do you do to show that you're engaged during the meeting as the project leader?
Maybe taking some form of minutes or like
Yeah.
having a checklist in front of you and you're sort of like,
Not just winging it.
yeah, like having some prepared material to like pull everyone's attention back onto task.
Yeah. How do you make sure that people are going to come back to the next meeting?
Money, bribery,
Food?
food.
Speaking of food.
Okay.
Making sure they're excited about what you're working on, like that they're engaged.
That's all true.
You could set them some sort of deliverable.
That's the one I'm looking for. Give them something to do before the next time that they need to report on. Something that they want to do, something nonetheless. That gets them coming back to the next meeting and that gets them thinking about the project between now and then. But make sure no one has more than they can handle, obviously. How do you judge whether the meeting was successful or not?
Gauge the vibe.
Essentially, how many people stayed engaged? How many people brought something new to the table? Very high level stuff, but this is a bit extreme, but sometimes what I'll do, depending on the project, is after every single meeting, I'll say, this is what Carson did, this is what Chris did, this is what Sebastian did, this is who showed up late, this is who stayed engaged. Just a mental note of these are the people that are consistent, these are the people that are not, and just kind of like adapting to how do I pick these people up that are consistently down. If this person was down this one time, maybe try to figure out why, but maybe don't. And just try to like also make sure you're staying engaged with their engagement. Bring your pups to your meetings with me. So this is a little term that Gabe kind of made up. Progress updates plans. This is what he asked for every single meeting. So the first meeting, what's your progress? What updates do you have? What are your plans? Oh, but the second meeting, I know what to expect. This is everything we've done so far. Here are all of my updates. Here are my plans between now and next week when I meet you again, because I'm meeting with you every week at the same time. It makes it really consistent. So this is what I want to do with you guys. I want you guys to bring me your pups every single week. If you happen to bring a puppy with you, that's okay too. But the main thing is, if you're not making any progress in a specific week, maybe it's just a hectic week and that's fine. But maybe it's because there's some issue that we need to work out or that like you haven't been able to alleviate or you're a step back. But it's a perfect time to just like take a half hour and talk through all the issues and not get too far behind. So I'll probably send out a meeting schedule with all the project leaders and just kind of see